Boo! Hello everyone and welcome back to another Pony and Wolves video. My name is once again Visual Pony and today we are reading the story 10 of Cups written by bahatumay. I have a feeling that we have featured this author before, but I'm reading so many stories that I really can't keep track of everyone. So yeah, I actually kind of like the idea of this because this is a Trixie story, and believe it or not, I kind of like the great and powerful Trixie. Like, one of my favorite Dr. Who's iterations is, for example, the one where he travels with Trixie. But, as always, here is a list of those amazing people who keep this amazing channel alive with their monthly donations that keep me eating and being able to pay my bills and, not to forget, refill my pain medication that I desperately need. So, without further ado, and because I think I'm annoying you a great deal right now, let's get into the story. Pick a kite, any kite! Wearing her signature hat, cape, and winning smile, Trixie shuffled the cards with her magic and rifled through them briefly before fanning them out in front of her. Pick a card, any card, but don't let Trixie see it! She instructed her young assistant as she dramatically looked away. The filly nodded and slightly adjusted her party hat with a hoof. Her stance was firm and her ears pricked. She was clearly determined to fool the magician. As Trixie slid the cards from hoof to hoof, she waited until the right moment and then stuck her hoof in quietly. "Excellent choice," Trixie said, sliding the card forward. It hadn't been, really. Card forces were among the first tricks in Trixie's toolbox. Trixie had known beforehand exactly which card she would pick, the 10 of Cups, because she had picked it for her. There really was no choice. Trixie had already made it for her. Magic like hers was all about illusions, such as the illusion of choice and the illusion of control. To help sell the second one, Trixie set the deck down on the table beside her and pulled out a permanent marker from one of her many hidden places. She pulled the cap off with her magic and held it out at the filly's eye level. "Now, just to keep Trixie honest, Trixie wants you to sign your name on the front of the card. Don't let her see it." The filly nodded. Wings spread in concentration, she took the offered marker in her mouth and, in her thick scrawl, signed her name across the chosen cards. "Perfect," Trixie said, fanning the cards to let her slide it back in. Of course, that was an illusion of choice too. She knew exactly where the card had gone. After all, she needed to know its exact position to set up part 2 of the trick. Trixie shuffled the deck. That too was an illusion. With a few false shuffles, she had surreptitiously moved the chosen card to the top of the deck. As she did, she spoke, looking at her audience and never once needing to look down at her cards. "I'll bet you didn't know that even Trixie's markers have magical powers, did you?" The filly raised an eyebrow and shook her head. It had looked just like the markers she had used in school. "In fact," Trixie lit her horn and lifted a large basin made of clear glass, full of water nearly up to the brim, up onto the table beside her. "Trixie's marker will imbue the card you've chosen with waterproof properties. Your card and only your card will float on the water like a little boat." She held up the deck demonstratively and, with a little bit of a flourish with her opposite hoof, dropped it inside. All the cards sank instantly. That wouldn't have been terrible had the cards not instantly begun to dissolve. Trixie gasped. She quickly tried to climb onto the table, rear hoofs scrabbling desperately for purchase, and when she finally made it up, desperately stuck her hoof in and tried to retrieve the deck. But by the time she'd actually gotten onto the table, all she'd managed to save were a mere few slimy grey strings resembling strands of paper mache that stuck to her hoof. Amidst the giggling of the folds and even a few of the adults, Trixie blinked. She set her hoof down with a quiet squelch. "Oops," she said, taking a slight step back and looking briefly from side to side before hopping down off the table. And perhaps the most important illusion to sell, the illusion of error. Some errors, though, weren't an illusion. One of Trixie's exaggerated shudders as her eyes flicked around the room and she shook the gunk off her hoof was real as memories of the incident with the Alicon amulet sprang to mind. And memories of how badly it had corrupted her. Sure, Twilight had forgiven her, and good rumors had also spread about her. Admittedly impressive fireworks display, but after that she needed to keep a very low profile. This was why she was currently doing her rounds, wasting her vast and expensive talent on false birthday parties and cute señoras. Sure, she could have chosen not to, but that would have meant choosing to starve. And Trixie was most certainly not about to choose that. Really, everything was the illusion of choice, and just like the fillies, Trixie's choice had already been made for her. The filly looked up with confusion in her eyes. Trixie let it slowly burn there, and when her mouth curved downwards as her first inklings of betrayal crept in, she finished her trick. "Trixie is very sorry that didn't work out," she said, lighting her horn and sliding over one of the sandwiches provided for the party. She held it out. "Perhaps a consolation prize?" she offered with a shaky smile. The filly glared at Trixie but took the sandwich and turned to walk off stage. Still scowling, she bit into it, but frowned as her teeth hit something that definitely wasn't cheese. She frowned and pulled her head back and clenched between her teeth. Her eyes widened. "No way!" She held it up, and sure enough, every pony could see her signature atop the 10 of cups. "My card!" she squealed. Trixie raised her hoof and bowed to thunderous applause. "The great and powerful Trixie, every pony!" Still, the filly's eyes lit up like one of Trixie's fireworks. Dropping the card and the sandwich, she darted over and wrapped herself around Trixie's foreleg. "You're the greatest magician ever!" she proclaimed. Sometimes, her stage facade cracked. Trixie smiled as she bent down and returned the hug. She glanced up to see the filly's mother, standing nearby with a camera. Never one to miss a good photo opportunity, she shook her hat off her head and placed it onto the filly's head and picked her up, turning around to pose for a picture. For a brief moment, captured forever in that flash of light, both wore wide, genuine smiles. It had been the right choice all along. Hello and welcome back to Comment Thomas with Pony, where I remind you that you can support Pony and Wolf Productions through the links down in the description below. Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated and helps to keep the lights on around here, and you want to keep the lights on around here because you want to hear more stories, don't you? So, also, great perks like for $1 a month you can get high-quality MP3 downloads of all of these stories. Now, let's get into the meat of the story, because I like it. I really do, and I can really relate to this, because many of you might not know this, but I am actually a trained, certified geriatric nurse. And believe it or not, I never wanted to be a geriatric nurse. But back then, military service was still mandatory here in Germany, and you could choose. Either you could do military substitute service, also called civil service, or you could do military service for 9 months. And I had to choose. Either I go to the military for 9 months, which really was something that I didn't want to do, or I go and do civil service, working, with disabled people, or with the firefighters, or, stuff like that. And it was actually my mom who then found me a place in a retirement home. Originally, because I'm relatively technical, inclined when it comes to technology and all that stuff, I applied for a position for civil service in that retirement home in the house technicians department, but they didn't have a place there. So they put me in nursing. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. Better than military, I guess, so let's do this. Let's wipe some asses. And you know what? I've been doing that for 16 years now. So, best choice I ever made, but also worst choice I ever made, because it broke my back in 7 places, so, yeah. Anyhow, guys, let me know if you've ever had a choice that you thought was a bad one, but then turned out to be a really good one. Sincerely yours, Visual Pony, and as always, did you really have to kill him? I mean, we're running out of clones.